guys, my name is Anna, you're watching simcue, and without further ado, let's get into this video. So today we're building an alchemist bar, and what I mean by that is that I was thinking, speculating, wondering how I could make these medieval fantasy-ish builds and combine them with some of the public lots that we have in The Sims 4, because since I want to build an entire fantasy world in Windenburg, I thought it would be very nice if your Sims had lots that they could actually visit, because a lot of the builds I want to do that I sort of have planned for this world, I could just do as residential buildings, but I feel like that would be such a shame because then you would have to have a family in each of them, and also your Sims wouldn't really have any place to go. So if you really want to immerse yourself in the story, I think these builds are going to be great because it means that your Sims have lots that they can visit that sort of fit the vibe that you're already going with. That is at least the idea. So I was thinking about like, what can I combine with a bar? And then I thought an alchemist. So that is what we are building here. And that's also why I wanted the build to be quite small, because I thought that if this was an actual house that belonged to an alchemist, I felt like it would be just on the smaller side. So here I was trying out, I actually tried it for quite a while to make it work with these doors that came with Movie Hangout, because you just so rarely get to use stuff from old packs, at least with the builds that I do. But no matter how hard I tried, the colouring, like the swatch, was just a little bit off. So I end up just going with the safe choice, which was the one from Get Together. I use Get Together for pretty much all of the builds that I do here in Windenburg. Obviously, Windenburg came with Get Together, so it also matches the style. But I also just feel like it really matches this whole medieval aesthetic fantasy kind of world that we're going for. So I think I've used it in pretty much all of the builds so far, and I think I will continue to use it for the majority of the builds. Another pack that I also find myself using like all the time is Horse Ranch. You just saw me placing like a bar and also the decorative piece that goes behind the bar, but it's also used for the columns, all the spandrels, a lot of the flooring in the different builds that I do, because Horse Ranch just comes with a lot of items that are like really nice and a little bit weathered, a little bit worn down, and that's at least for me what I think about when I think of this medieval fantasy kind of village that I want to go for. So it just fits in really, really nicely. So we already have the overall shape, we got most of the colouring, like the swatches. I think we'll work a little bit more on the outside before heading inside. I'm currently struggling with some stairs. I didn't really know what I wanted to go for, but I just choose some wooden stairs. And then in a moment, I think you will see me using a fence to make kind of like a trellis here on top. So I won't do that right now, but later on I will add plants to this like terrace roofing kind of situation. I couldn't really work out the shape, but I get it eventually, and I think it ends up looking really, really nice when you add plants. And this is a very simple thing to do. You can definitely do it yourself. Just add the fencing. I do like to go in and make sure that I add this floor trim. Yeah, so that you don't have these like white pieces. We're now moving on to the basement, because I felt like an alchemist needed a basement, and also it's a little bit running out of space because obviously there need to be some toilet situation. So I just added that here to the back. I didn't really do a whole lot about it. I just needed there to be some toilets. We will get back to the basement eventually, and I really like how the decorations in the basement turned out. So we're just quickly picking out some bar stools. I end up going with the ones from Discover University because they were the ones where I liked the shape of the stool the most. And then I think we will be moving outdoors and picking the outdoor furniture, which I really struggle with, to the point where I wanted to cut out a huge chunk of me actually trying to furnish this, because normally I would say that I don't care too much about the swatches not matching completely. I know that a lot of creators complain about the fact, especially with wooden swatches, that they're just a little bit off. They're like almost the same, but then they're just a little bit off. And I can definitely see it being really annoying, but normally I don't care too much about it because I feel like in real life as well, like I have some walnut furniture, but not all of my pieces that are supposed to be walnut furniture are the exact same shade. Like they're just a little bit different, but I still feel like they match. And that's kind of what I usually go for in Sims 4 as well. But with this, I was just struggling so hard because I tried some different tables, I tried some different chairs, then I settled on a table, but then the chair didn't match, and I thought for sure that this chair was supposed to match, but it was like either the wood color was off or the metal color was off. So I finally settled on some, and then what you're seeing right here is that I settled on one color and then changed it again, which I feel like is just very classic for me. I don't always show it in the videos. Sometimes I do cut it out because it's just very tedious, but I felt like keeping it in just so that you could see the struggle I went through to get some furniture down. We're now moving on to the indoor space. So another thing that I usually do when I build is that I just grab a lot of different pieces of furniture, just scatter it on the lawn, in a different room, wherever I'm working, and I just try to afterwards see what would actually go well together, what do I feel like match this room that I'm decorating. So I'm going through some different swatches on the different chairs and seeing what is going to match the space and the other furniture in the space already. So you will probably see multiple times that there's just like random furniture on the lot, and eventually I will go back and delete it. So I ended up picking the wooden sofas from Get Together because I just felt like they were the ones that matched the best, even though I would say they're more like a bench. They don't seem super comfortable, but I still wanted to have some more like cozy furniture because for the tables I chose to pick the high tables, so everything else is just the bar stools. When I'm getting some more furniture out, again the same thing, I just go through a category, I find everything that I feel like might match, and then I eventually get to actually furnishing the place. Now because I was already using Discover University, I just shortly tried to see if I could fit in the very nice bookcases that come with Discover University, but they were a little bit too tall and I didn't want the building to be any taller because again it's like quite small, so I feel like tall walls would just be way too much for the space. So I looked through a couple of different ones, but I ended up just going with the ones from the base game. I actually really like them. They're one of the few base game items that are actually really nice. So I put them both on the ground floor and also in the basement. And speaking of basement, we're now in the basement. I'm choosing a table which took me much longer than it should have. I was really going back and forth because I wanted it to be like worn, I wanted the texture to be right, but I couldn't really find one that also had the proper wooden color. So I ended up settling for this table that is then grey, but still that like still matches, and not everything have to be matchy. So we just jumped ahead and we now have all of this decor all over the place. What I do is that I go through the filters, I pick the packs that I want to be working with, and then I just drag out everything that I feel like could work for the space. So what I'm doing here is I'm using a larger shelf. This one specifically is from high school years. I actually do think we have one in the base game as well. It's just a little bit wider or like deeper, so I can then put things on that, alt place it to the right height of the shelves I actually want to be using, and then I can sort of drag the items off and alt place them on the more narrow shelves that the items would usually not be able to go on. So it's a little bit tedious, but I think it looks really nice. So I'm just custom placing every single item, but it means that I can make a much more cluttered space. The same thing goes for the tables. I am using this base game lamp because it's very like tall and skinny, and I'm placing it where I want to place the item. I then move the table, place the item, and then of course I move the table back to make sure that it actually looks right. So this is also a way to custom place items so that it looks much more cluttered, because otherwise you would only be able to put like 3 items or so on these tables, and I felt like for an alchemist we really wanted to just clutter up the space. So I just found all the decor pieces that I thought could fit in, and placed it all over, and I really like how it turned out. Same thing upstairs, I just dragged out some decor pieces. I'm using the wider shelf to custom place items on the smaller shelves, and I wanted for this space to feel kind of cluttered but still be very easily accessible, especially because you will also have NPCs, if we can call it that, like Sims that you're not controlling that are going to this bar, and I didn't want anyone to get stuck because the place was too cluttered. So I very much kept the clutter to areas that your Sims wouldn't really interact with. All of these items are also just decor items, so your Sim can't really do anything with them either way. And I also placed a lot of items on that back space for the bar, and I think that looked really, really nice as well. So everything is just a little bit more cluttered. We're now moving on to this trellis part, this roofing for the terrace. I'm placing the plants. I think we will actually go back later and also place some hanging plants, which is very exciting. But I wanted this outdoor space to be very nice and cozy, have a lot of plants. I'm using these, is it wisteria from Cottage Living? I think these are the ones that comes in the regular catalogue, and then later I will be using the ones that also come with the debug catalogue. I'm now playing around with the chimneys. We, after all, do have a fireplace, so I did want a chimney. And then I wanted some more detail for the tower. Every good alchemist should have a tower, even though it's very much not accessible. And I found these smaller towers that also come with Get Together, so just place them. But I do end up deleting a few because when I sort of zoomed out, I was like, that's a little too much. So just adding a few details, few windows. I also used that like wooden plank that went across the roofing for an extra little detail. And then we had another jump ahead, and it's really just because I find that it's so tedious to go through the debug catalog and get everything out that I feel like it wouldn't really be a very good video clip. So I will spare you. So I've just found all of the items. This fence is a debug fence from Cottage Living, and what I really like about using debug fences is that we can now place them on the edge of the lot. I do not know why regular fences are not allowed to be on the edge of the lot, but it sometimes bothers me a lot. So the debug fences, because they are an item instead of a fence, we can just place them on the edge, which is really, really nice. I use the same fence to frame the, would you call it like a stone porch? And it's because it comes with this really nice like rounded edge, which of course if you do place a fence, most fences will round nicely, but I was just very happy to have a debug fence so that the outside fence and this fence actually match each other. Now the rest is really just placing all of these items that I found in the debug catalog. So you just saw me use the tool mod to angle the wheel so it looks like it's sort of leaning against the fence. Then I have these plant boxes that I will be later placing some plants in. We have some hay going on here. I'm using some wisteria, and this was what I mentioned earlier. So these are from the horse ranch debug, and I then place them on top and then use the tool mod to lower them. So we have these like hanging plants from the trellis at the terrace, which I really think ended up looking so nice. But again, going back and forth, which is also why I'm so sorry, but the camera angles might be a little bit chaotic because I'm just grabbing a piece, placing it somewhere, grabbing a piece, placing it somewhere else. We're now going through the debug catalog once again to find the plants for landscaping. So I'm grabbing flowers, I'm grabbing bushes. Some of them I am placing in these planter boxes, so it looks like that's where they're growing. And then we will in general just be placing a lot of plants like all over. I felt like an alchemist would have a kind of overgrown garden. This wisteria is also from Cottage Living, but it's not in the regular catalogue, so this can only be found in debug, and I just sized it down and placed it using the tool mod so it looked just right. These are from, these more like ivy-like plants are from Discover University, and I really love to use them to just make the entire space seem a little bit more overgrown, a little bit more cottage-like, cozy. I found these small grasses to add along the fence to again make it look a bit more overgrown, and I really like when everything just comes together and it's just the vision that I sort of imagined. Now we will shortly be moving into the basement because A bar in The Sims 4 requires a TV and also a radio, but I obviously felt like that did not match the space at all. So I just made this little extra cutout in the basement. I placed the smallest TV and the smallest radio, and then I just placed barrels on top. And it was really just because I didn't want the gallery to say that the lot was like incomplete. So the lot is complete, but you cannot use the TV or the radio. We just have a little bit of terrain paint, which also means that we are at the end of this video. If you want to use this lot, my name on the gallery is just simcue. And other than that, I wish you a lovely day. I hope to see you next time, and bye!